Now it's time that we dive a little deeper, Jarom, and look at the pros and cons. Let's weigh the options for each of these four guys. In fact, what is the biggest pro and con of each of the four that we think could step in?
Hard to pick just one for some of these guys, so perhaps I'll pick two. Okay, Mark Pope. Let's start with him. Pro, experience. I think his experience as a player, not only in college, the NBA, but his enthusiasm as well, I think, is a really big pro.
Makes him a great recruiter.
Okay, con, does he have bigger goals than BYU? I don't think that's a con per se. I was trying hard to think about what's the con of Mark Pope. You could argue, okay, hasn't made the NCAA tournament, Utah Valley yet. That's New Mexico State's league, kind of like Gonzaga is WCC's, tier 1 team there. Not a lot of cons for Mark Pope. I don't see a lot of cons. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a legitimate strike against Mark Pope other than does he want to be at BYU? Because the coach at BYU needs to be 1,000,000% all in, no regrets, because there's so much to handle with that job. As far as Mark Madsen goes, the other Mark, I'd say his biggest pro is his NBA connections. You talk about a recruiting circle that would open up and being able to say, hey, I played with the likes of Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, and I played under Phil Jackson and won NBA championships, and I know what it takes to be a winner. I played at Stanford. I went to a Final Four. I know all about that. So there is that prestige and the NBA connections that he brings. The con, well, he's never been in the modern college coaching scene, and for that matter, recruiting with all of the social media craziness. So there's some risk there in taking a leap into Mark Madsen and saying, okay, we're going to bank on the fact that you do have these NBA connections, but does that translate down to the college game in a very unique setting like BYU? Can you recruit to BYU? Because I'm sorry, BYU is a totally different beast compared to an assistant for the LA Lakers.
We typically like and prefer a BYU person at BYU, right? But that doesn't necessarily matter, right? Lavelle Edwards is not a BYU guy. He didn't go to BYU. He went to Utah State. Dave Rose went to Dixie and Houston. So perhaps it could work out. Okay, Barrett Puri, pro, hair, number one.
I knew that was going to get brought up.
JC connections. He's been a head coach at two different JCs, Indian Hills Community College, College of Southern Idaho. He's got the JC connections. He's been in the WCC at Santa Clara. He's been in a power conference, Pac-12. He's been a head coach at Portland State. His LinkedIn resume, if you will, it has a lot of variety and a lot of nice lines on it.
Yeah,
limited coaching head coaching experience, 2 years.
See, and I think we're getting nitpicky, right, with Mark Pope and Barrett Puri. Like, I don't know that there's
a lot of pros there.
Exactly.
If I have to name a con, I'll name a con, but yeah.
Barrett Puri is a chameleon. He can take whatever he has, wherever he's coaching, and typically make the most out of it. I thought he did that at Portland State. You know what? Talk about a tough recruiting situation.
He's doing it. He's still there.
Yeah, talk about a tough recruiting situation and being undersized and underestimated. He won 20-plus games his first year at Portland State with a smaller group of guys, but he
didn't this last year, but last year
formulated this scheme to get the most out of his team. I like it. Okay, on to Quincy Lewis, pros, basketball junkie. He's a perfectionist. Like, he eats,
he fits in well at BYU, then
drinks BYU, and he knows the current construct of the team better than anyone. He knows what he's getting into because he's been living it. The con? Well, he doesn't fit the mold of fresh blood, so the timing hurts. We've got this idea of, there needs to be new energy and new blood in this coaching staff and reinvigorate the team and all this stuff. The timing stinks for Quincy. And I don't know that really there's a huge con. Some people say, well, he's never been a head coach at the Division I level. Dave Rose hadn't been a head coach at the Division I level.
I think his resume doesn't stack up next to the other three as well. I think that's where the timing's the main issue. If he's the best candidate, then he's the best candidate. But I think against those other three, it's going to be tough.